It's going. All right, Alex. Thanks for meeting with me again.
Yeah.
Last time in our post observation, we talked about connecting Spanish to our students' lives, and then kind of creating that really cool portfolio idea that you had. Just over the course of the year, kind of connecting the hooks to your student lives, to what they're learning that day or that week in class. So kind of looking back on that post-conference, what are the two big areas of growth that you had in mind for yourself?
So I think those two that we talked about was the portfolio to kind of measure their growth. And I love the idea of that because I think it puts a lot of the responsibility on them to show their growth.
Yep.
And then also just those ways to kind of get them excited about whatever unit that we're doing. So those, those, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. Who would these changes in growth affect the most? Obviously kind of a simple question, but.
Yeah, I think that it would help, especially those that maybe don't see the value outside of whatever. I mean, a lot of them want to take my class because they think they need it to go to college, and they don't see a lot of value beyond that. So I think a lot of them will be able to make some connections that maybe they didn't even realize when they're kind of reflecting on what their own goals are and things like that. And for the ones that I think with those hooks too, there are some that maybe the ones that aren't as naturally engaged and kind of have to work at it, but hopefully I can make it more interesting for them.
Yeah, that's kind of what we talked about last time, kind of the high achievers that are just trying to get the A, and then the kind of the kids that need to be more engaged that day in class. So kind of in the short term, how will it affect your students?
I actually think it could make a huge short-term change in some of them, literally from the minute that they look and say, what are my goals in this class /life/school, I mean, the future, all of that. And then how does that relate to what we're doing? Because as much as we breeze over that, I think having it an actual activity where they say, this is how it connects, I think could take it to a different level for some of them right away, the minute that they start their portfolio.
Yeah, and then kind of shifting that into the long term, 10 years down the road, how does this affect your students?
I truly think that also some of them could be kind of even directed down a path they maybe didn't see coming. I use myself as an example because I had no intention of studying Spanish further. And I think that if my Spanish teacher in high school had maybe said, here's a path or here's how you could have used, I think I maybe would have seen sooner the benefit of it.
For sure. And then why is this important? Like, why are we doing this thing?
Well, I think all the time, I mean, the whole idea of what I do in here relates back to this. It's like making students see the relevance beyond what we're doing for a letter grade is literally the point of it.
So kind of looking at taking the hook and taking the portfolio, those two things you kind of want to grow as a teacher with. How could we relate those to the ITS, the Iowa Teaching Standards? Is there any standards that kind of connect to this?
I think it directly relates to Standard 4 since we're connecting it to their real life learning. And then through the fifth one, through Standard 5, they can show their mastery in lots of ways, especially with the portfolio. And I haven't even decided maybe if it'll be probably a digital one, I'm thinking, because that way they can show all kinds. I mean, there's interpretive and they can show their speaking and writing and all those different things.
And you've talked about this. We've talked about this in our post-op and kind of in our conversation since then. Question is, what resources would you use to help them track their alignment? But obviously, just that portfolio, whether it's, and I like the digital idea that you just had there.
I don't know if it would just be like I don't know if I think I do need a tiny bit more research in terms of I don't know if it's just a Google Drive folder that they share with me, if that's the best way, or if there's some sort of better organizational tool I can use. And maybe if I have a folder that I share with them that's formatted with here's how you show me mastery of, or gives them ideas.
So that kind of ties into a couple questions I have down the road.
Okay.
But I guess we'll get there.
Okay.
So moving into making our SMART goal, and between our post-observation conference and today, we kind of talked about SMART goal. I had that assignment back in chapter 7. So first things first, the S in SMART stands for specific, as you know. We've kind of already answered these questions, but what two big things do you have in mind? Obviously, the hook in the portfolio. And then we've talked about having your students that are really high and then the students that are lower, just the different ways that it can affect them in the short term and the long term. So kind of double dip in there. We already kind of covered that for the specific. So the measurable, how can you document these students' improvements over the course of, say, like a day or the week or the quarter?
Yeah, I think I mean, literally just being able to show proof that they've reflected on, I mean, just having their reflection is proof in itself that they've taken the time to reflect on that. But I think also I have them do like a comfort level survey at the end of each quarter, and where they talk about their comfort level with like speaking and reading and writing and all of that stuff. And so I'd be interested to compare results without a portfolio and with, to see if it impacted their comfort level and that kind of thing. I also want to make them more aware of proficiency levels, which are related to grades, but I don't know if they necessarily see, grades can be, there's some compliance related with grades still, as much as I want to say there's not. And so I need to make them aware. I think having them at the end of each portfolio, even every time that, or at the end of at the end of a week or whatever, having them take a minute to look at the proficiency levels and say, where does my work fall in terms of my proficiency level? And they're not always going to move. I mean, they're in one proficiency level for a long time, but seeing if they, or at least focusing on how will you get to the next one, and what do you need to do to get to the next one?
And that's just good data that not only you obviously grade their speaking, their tests, their quizzes, like all those assessments. So that's just data that you would store in PowerSchool, and then maybe the kids kind of grading themselves on proficiency over the year. You could use that data, and they understand that kind of data instead of just 86%. What does that mean?
Right. Yes, I think that would make a big difference for them.
So that was measurable. Moving on to achievable. What could you do? And this is kind of going back. This is what you talked about before. So what could you provide for the students to make these portfolio activity really work smoother?
Yeah, I think that what I need to do is probably just create my own folder where it has labeled subfolders that have, the different things that they need to be able to demonstrate and that they can do, or and then a checklist document right within the folder that they can see where, here's what I need to be able to show that I can do to show mastery, and here's some of the ways that I can achieve that. And so I also like the element of choice with that too, because there are tons of ways they can show me mastery of a bunch of different things.
And when I was thinking about this earlier, obviously that's a really good idea. Just kind of going back to week one of the semester, if you were to do this, just giving them an outline of the portfolio might be really helpful, or making it in class together or something that would just save a lot of headaches for you down the road. So what could the students do themselves in making this portfolio?
Well, I think overall after they've seen their options, they can choose and upload whatever activities they feel best show their mastery. But I also think in a related activity where we give them a lot of choices for this project that we do across all language classes, I have students all the time that are coming and saying, hey, I feel like this activity would relate, but it's not on the list. Can I do it? And so I feel like that would happen with the portfolio a lot too, where they would say, hey, this isn't listed, but could I, write a letter to somebody, or, just something that they came up with themselves.
Well, that was give them ownership.
Yeah, for sure. And get them excited, about more than picking from a list or whatever.
So we've talked about what you can do for the students, what the students can do for themselves. What might you need help with in helping the students?
I think it would help me to see, because I'm sure instead of reinventing the wheel myself, I'm sure there are plenty of Spanish teachers that have done portfolios before. So maybe just compiling other ideas from other teachers and looking at what they've used in the past, so that I don't have to spend hours trying to create my own stuff.
Moving on to relevancy, obviously you've done a really nice job with the SMA. Moving on to the R part, we've already talked about ITS standards, the Iowa Teaching Standards 4 and 5. Kind of check that off. You talked about those a little bit. Then if you flip over, we can kind of move on to the time section, kind of our timetables. So kind of just setting like realistic goals for yourselves, because we don't want this to be a ton of extra work for you. We don't want this to be a ton of extra work for your kids. We don't want it to take away from
Right.
like the mastery that you're trying to move the students towards. So kind of realistically in your mind, by the end of second quarter of this year, what would you like to have done, or what do you see yourself being able to get done?
I think at that point, I would like them to maybe even just know that it's coming, that it's been presented, the idea has been presented, that they know that they're going to be doing that, and also familiarizing them by then with the proficiency benchmarks. I talk about that all the time, and I never take the time to do that, and so that needs to be step one, because I don't think they can really evaluate themselves unless they know what that means. Like, what am I evaluating? It's
for sure. So after they know that in the second quarter, third quarter, after coming back after Christmas break, what would you kind of like want the students / the class to kind of start?
So I think by the end of the third quarter, we talk about just those 4 really natural areas of like reading, speaking, listening, and writing. And I think they should be able to show me some form of each of those mastery in each of those areas of whatever. And it doesn't have to even be from the same unit if they're all doing, pulling from a unit that they're comfortable with, or maybe they pull. But I think by the end of the third quarter, they can at least show me one artifact to demonstrate each one of those things.
And then by the end of the year, what would you want their goals to be?
At the end of the year, we should be able to have a fairly decent portfolio put together, I think, at that point, and maybe reflections added to be able to show where they think they are proficiency-wise and their goals in the future.
I like that. So that kind of takes care of our SMART goal, and we've talked about it before. So obviously, these answers kind of tie into that. Just looking at this as a whole, how will you know that your students are making progress?
I think again, the comfort survey makes a big difference to me. Finding out if they feel any more comfortable, and it's kind of nice, I guess, right now that we're kind of starting at 0, that they don't even know what a proficiency level really looks like or what that means. So I'll know, because we'll be able to have discussions about where they are, where they want to go, that kind of thing, that we can't have those right now because, they just say, I want to speak better. They don't know what that means or how they get there.
And I would even add, just like by checking their portfolio.
Right.
That's
sure.
the really nice part, especially if you have it like in Google Drive or something. Everybody can share it.
Yeah.
What will success look like with these activities?
I actually think, and as much as I know that from my end, looking at the artifacts that they upload and things like that is going to show success in itself. But I actually think the reflections might actually show the most for me, success-wise, because they'll be relating it. That's how they're going to make those connections to how is this relevant, where are they going, where are they now, that kind of thing. So I think just if they're taking the time to do meaningful reflections after each one, I think that's going to show me that they've kind of found success through it.
This is just me thinking out loud. Did you have to do the 8 standards things with Stacy when you had to start? That's, I don't know, maybe that would be like a good place to steal from.
Yeah, that's actually really
you have,
true.
Your 4 standards or whatever, and they have to upload like a hyperlink to whatever, and then like the little spot for reflection.
Yeah, and the way that Stacy organized that for us was so helpful for me, because she had all these ideas for me and all these things that and it didn't feel like more work when she did that for me, because I'm already doing these things. I just had to organize them. And so it's almost just like putting them in a folder than anything.
So kind of moving on to some documentation, what kind of artifacts do you foresee students making to kind of show their mastery?
So I think that's where there's going to be just a wide array of things, but I think they can make videos. They can choose articles that they read and summarize. They can show me things that they've written in class by uploading work that they've written in class. They could even, if they're doing a partner speaking activity, maybe they videotape that while they're doing it in class, so I can see them talking to a partner. I think there are just tons of things. Even texting with somebody in the language. There's just a whole bunch of different things that I think that they could do. Lots of different things.
And then before we talked about some data, it was just making sure they're filling out the reflection stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But then today you kind of added in the twist of the comfort surveys.
Yeah.
So obviously the question I had was, what kind of data could you track on the student's progress? So the comfort surveys, I kind of touches
I
there.
think that'll be.
So then, where would you document their process? Like, where do you document the comfort surveys, and then where would you document maybe the portfolios?
So for now, I've put because I've just been doing the comfort surveys quarterly for a couple of years, and I've just been putting kind of the data that Google Forms pulls the data together for me, but taking it and I've just put it into like an Excel spreadsheet or whatever for now. I don't know if there's a better way in terms of like the portfolios, because then I don't know if I just have a bunch of their folders. I'm not sure about that part. The comfort surveys, I think I have a pretty good system going, and I can compare across years and things, but
maybe it's like, let's say if we were to picture like Stacy's document for this, if a student filled that out for you, you don't want to like open up Google Docs every single one, like click. So maybe have like your own spreadsheet of just like a checklist, like student A is done, check 1, check 2, check 4. Student C, like it just that way you don't have to like go in and out. You can just kind of keep your own tally.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So the last just couple questions here. What barriers would you see as a teacher in meeting this goal?
Time. It's always we're already busy as it is grading and or planning lessons and things like that. So time. But I think if I make it a priority, I think that's kind of how to get around that.
So kind of going around that, what could you do ahead of time to kind of make that a priority, I guess?
Yeah. I think I have like time when I'm not necessarily in like full focus mode. So I think even making it like sometimes after lunch it takes me 10 minutes to roll, and during those 10 minutes, when I'm during my prep, it takes me like 10 minutes to get started. I think maybe just making that like I don't do anything else until I've spent whatever this amount of time on that.
Well, like I said before, we don't want this to be like a huge extra load on you or whatever. So maybe just like 5 minutes once or twice a week. Like let's just something small
just so we don't forget about it.
And like kind of like you said in the time thing, you have like all of second semester, all of second quarter to kind of figure it out. What barriers would students find in completing their portfolio?
I think maybe the only thing I can think of right now is that they would feel maybe sometimes they feel like embarrassed about uploading a video or doing something like that. So I think maybe making it really clear that it's for me and them and nobody else at this point would kind of help us get around that. I don't really think otherwise. I think that I truly think that they'll see the value in it for the most part, and I don't think they'll get a lot of pushback that way.
What could I do to assist you in relieving any of these barriers?
I don't think anything other than like if, and I can talk to an instructional coach too, or, somebody about just like strategies in terms of portfolios, because they're not just world language class related. So I could talk to somebody about what, things that people have tried in the past with portfolios that have worked well or whatever.
And then very last thing, who else might you rely on? Like, how could you kind of utilize your PLC? Do you think they would buy into it? Something like that?
Yeah, I think especially because we have 3 different Spanish teachers. So I think like being able to say and being able to share, here's the portfolio that my kids created last year, and a couple of example portfolios so they can see here's what my kids coming to me in the next level are capable of and where they are proficiency wise. Instead of me just telling them about it, they can actually see some work. We can show like a lower range and a higher range and a mid range example. So
I think that's really good.
I think they would like it.
So obviously we've discussed this, but you just want to read through kind of the SMART goal. So we'll just go. We can go this one first. Just double check that this is like you're comfortable with this stuff. I guess.
Yeah.
Final thing.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Sweet. That was the last one. So
Okay.
those are all the questions I had. I just appreciate you being a good sport.
Yeah. Thanks.
Kind of fun. But if you have any other questions, just let me know.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.